Hey guys, I'm just gonna make this video here for JW Solar USA. He asked me to see the wind curve I have for this turbine. It's like 12:30 a.m. right now, so everything has just reset. I see the clock is out of whack. That's why it's yellow. Sync it and it'll go back. So, oh yeah, I have to turn that off on the charge controller itself. Forgot. You can see this one's here is a high voltage turbine. It'll actually stall out if I try to turn it on at the lower voltages, like 100 volts. Just pushing it. It'll do about 200 RPMs to make 200 watts. 200 volts. Make a fuck of a lot more watts than 200 at that voltage. This is the wind curve I'm using. So it turns on here at 120. It'll make 1 amp at 145 volts going into the battery. And then from there it starts to go up just gradually. And like the wind starts to get stronger and stronger as it gets faster. So you want to see this flatten out. Try to push more and more amps with a flatter and flatter curve as it gets to the top here. See, after that, right in here is where it starts to crank itself up. At 195 volts is where it really starts to crank up the wind turbine. Makes it push out the amps. And by the time it hits 240, it's maxed. And like at this amperage going into the batteries, I think it's somewhere around 1700 watts. The clipper will turn on at 241 volts, and the dump load that is on the wind turbine's clipper is a 3000 watt resistive load, which is much more than this charge controller can handle. So if it starts to over amperage or over volt the charge controller, the dump load will take care of the rest of it. You need to have that clipper, otherwise you're looking at killing your turbine. I found out with this one you gotta have a good SSR, preferably the 3-phase that switches on the AC side of it. I've been blowing up the 220 volt SSRs when I had this wind curve at 200 volts. It was still killing those SSRs. And I took apart the SSR and they're rated for 300 volts, the IBGTs in them. So it must have some pretty high spikes. Right now I have a 480 volt 3-phase AC SSR, which seems to be working fine. Another thing too about your clipper is you want to have it on the AC side. Like if you are switching DC power, you want to have 2 bridge rectifiers that isolate your outputs from the charge controller, because the charge controller has large caps in it which will fuck your SSRs. That's not what was fucking mine up, but if you are switching like that, you might have problems. But yeah, it's pretty simple. If you want to change it, all you gotta do is just like that. There, I'm sure you know that. All you gotta do is hit commit, and that's what you got. If you want to load something, you just go to your load, whatever you gotta do. If you have a something saved in here, in one of your downloads or somewhere you are in here, you can easily do that. Just go in here and you'll upload it. Choose your data or whatever you have. WindCurve, you can go right onto Midnight Solar's website and go into their documents section, and you'll find a whole bunch of wind curves you can upload. And if you want to save it, it's the same thing. You just hit save and you'll go over there. And you can save it under a name you want. That's all there is to it. I have 2 wind turbines, each with their own classic, so I have them in follow me. This one will follow my other one. It doesn't have a battery temperature on it, but it still is able to get the readings because of it's following my other classics battery temp. This one's following the other one. The other one is the master. Because this machine won't be up all the time, I'll be leaving the little one up. I'll be taking this one down when I go to work because I'm away from home most of the time. I don't need this big monster putting out all that amperage into the batteries when I'm not around. Like right now, it's just after midnight. It's still putting power out, and it's very, very calm outside. You can hardly even tell there's any wind outside when you go outside. You can't hear the trees rustling or anything, and this is the power it makes. Actually, here, let's check. See, it's just after midnight, so it just did its thing. Today wasn't very windy at all. It made half a kilowatt. Yesterday it made a kilowatt. The day before, in that 30-kilometer-an-hour wind, it did 3 kW. And the peak was 711 at 205 volts. Seeing these, this is the first day it actually worked. The first reading here. This here was just me rebooting it when I first started it, so it didn't, these aren't actually, this isn't the day at all. I played around with the wind curve a little bit, but I think from about here up, it's been the same one. It's a high voltage wind turbine. It's in Delta, and it's still making these high voltages. But I designed it to work with this classic or a 3-phase transformer. So I don't know, if you want, just upload that wind curve, and then you can just maybe move your voltages down to where yours works pretty good. I would, if you're working with a 48-volt battery bank, I'd start by moving this right here to your 48-volt setting, and then maybe move this 145 volts down to about 60 volts with 1 amp, and then just slowly bring her up from there. Like I did, every 20 volts went up 2 amps into the batteries. I've seen with your drill test, it seems to put out pretty good voltages, so I'd try to get your maximum power out of that machine at around 150 volts. From what I've seen with your drill. Because this one here does this at about 210 RPMs, it'll be making this voltage. It's pretty easy for me to make the volts. Well, thanks for watching here, guys. Hope this helps you.